Hello, my name is James Rainey, and I'm here to visit with you today regarding community property versus separate property. This is another one of those topics, like many of them are, that require a good deal of time to go through and explain. But in a synopsis, let's kind of try to understand that Texas is a community property state. So what that means is that when you have a married couple in Texas, that everything owned by the married couple is presumed to be community property. That means Texas presumes that the husband and the wife jointly own all of the property. And so that's community property. So I'm married, and anything that is in my name and is presumed to be community property because I'm married to my wife, Elisa. And so if I were to go buy a car right now, like today, and put it in my name only, when I come home and drive it into the garage and my wife says, "Oh, beautiful car, that's nice, James," she knows that she's a half owner of that car, even though the title is only in my name. That's community property. Now, separate property means that it's only my property and my wife does not have a half ownership interest in it. And how do we get separate property in Texas? Well, there's 3 or 4 common ways that happens. One, you own the property before you get married and you keep it separate. So a good example of that would be if I had $25,000 in the bank account, I got married, I left the $25,000 in the bank account forever in my name only. 10 or 15 years later, if that's the case, it's still my separate property because I owned it before we got married and I kept it separate. Another example would be a gift. If I get a gift while I am married, my gift is my separate property. Of course, I have to keep it separate from the community property. So if my mom were to buy me a car, instead of me buying my own car, my mom buys me the car and gives it to me, and it's in my name. Now that car is my separate property because it was a gift to me and only to me. So as long as I don't, put my wife's name on it, then I will with certainty retain separate property status, and that car is mine. So if we were to get divorced or if I were to die, that separate property that belongs to me only. Another example of how we get separate property is through inheritance. So same thing. If my mother died and left me a car in inheritance, then when that car is transferred into my name, it's separate property, not community property. So I own it separately because I inherited it. And another way is when a husband and wife agree to make property separate property. It's very common in our practice to help husbands and wives do prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements, partition agreements, where they say, okay, everything I own is my separate property, everything you own is your separate property. And those kinds of agreements are really, really important, especially with second marriages. And so we do a lot of that.